Welcome to the 2025 Publishing Professionals Network Annual Conference. Fast forward, staying grounded in the changing landscape of publishing. I'm Katryce Campbell, Senior Publicist at University of California Press and PPN Board President. I'm super excited to be with you all today for really excellent and thoughtful programming and community building and being here together in person. A little bit about PPN. PPN was founded as Book Builders West in 1969, rechartered as Publishing Professionals Network in 2012 to reflect the changing nature of book publishing and to embrace all of the partnerships that exist within our industry. PPN encourages education and development through its annual conference, which you are at, and our professional development programs. PPN is run completely by volunteers, and we very much rely on your membership and your support to continue offering the resources and the programming that we do. So thank you to all of our current members, and if you're interested in becoming a member, please reach out or visit our website. The winners of the 2024 Book Awards are on display in the same room as the copy and the vendor display, so please check those out. And remember to come back here after the last session today for the announcement of the winner of the Distinguished Service Award. I also want to take a moment to thank Dave Keaty, the previous PPN board president, for his many years of dedicated and tireless service to this organization. Dave has done so much to cultivate the PPN board and our many working committees, including the committee that plans this conference. Shout out Emily Boyd also. Dave is a deep well of institutional knowledge, and he truly cares about honoring and sustaining the PPN mission. Thank you, Dave, for everything that you still do for PPN.
Thank you.
Okay, lastly, there is a lot going on outside of this room that is scary and uncertain and completely out of our control. And that is true every year, but it feels particularly necessary to name it right now. I'm really grateful to be in this space with all of you, spending the next many hours sharing skills and wisdom that can help sustain us in our work. The mass distribution of the written word has always been a transformative force and a dangerous one to those whose power has depended on controlling access to information. Publishing has always been fundamentally anti-authoritarian. Publishing has always been radical. And what we do when we gather like this is an intentional act of resistance and a celebration of the liberatory power of knowledge. We owe it to each other and to the next generation of readers and writers to honor the importance of our work. So thank you for being here. I'm going to turn it over now to Thad McIlroy, who will introduce our keynote speaker, Fauzia Burke. Thad McIlroy works with authors and publishers to understand the impact and opportunities for AI in publishing, and regularly shares his insights in Publishers Weekly, on his blog at The Future of Publishing, and in his most recent book, The AI Revolution in Book Publishing, which has just been revised.
Thanks, Katryce. Good morning, everyone. This is my first PPN meeting, so I'm delighted to be here. Elena Brantley, who is a colleague and friend, had been encouraging me for some time to join the group, and so I joined a few months back. Haven't been in, didn't want to show up first at a virtual meeting. I thought I would wait until I could meet people face to face and talk to people face to face. So I was delighted then when Helena said, well, why don't you introduce Fauzia Burke? And it's like, oh, that would be an honor. That would be great. So that's why I'm here today, to introduce a friend and colleague, Fauzia. It's, as I was thinking about the introduction, I was thinking, well, there's two controversial topics that Fauzia brings to this meeting. One is marketing, and the other is AI, of course. And so, marketing, I'm sure many of you have been down the dusty road of trying to find someone who can help you market a book. Whether you're an author or a freelancer, editorial, whatever, we're working with friends or with colleagues, and it comes to that moment where it's like, I need help with marketing. And so you start to look out at who's available and who the freelancers are and who the agencies are. And you, I would guess, have had an experience not dissimilar to mine, where there's some people out there that say they're marketing experts, but aren't really. And I was thinking about it, editorial freelancers, you don't run into this the same way, but marketers, quite often, they're not quite up to snuff. But they're marketers, so they do a great job of convincing you that they can do it. And so with Fauzia, I'd always had it sort of in the back of my mind that she was the real McCoy, that she really knows her stuff. And I don't know exactly how I first got that impression, but it was with that impression in the back of my mind that she hadn't marketed to me at that point. I was at the IBPA event in San Diego in 2023 and finally had a chance for a face-to-face meeting with Fauzia, and that was a delight. And of course, there was sort of a mind meld there because the AI stuff was just coming into market and we were just buzzing on that right away. And I had a chance after that to connect Fauzia with one of my self-published author clients, because I still do a lot of work with self-published authors. And what a wonderful experience that was to watch her do her stuff. In a 1-hour session, it was just like zoom, 8 pages of notes, fantastic. One great piece of information and advice right after the other. So that was wonderful. With the AI, I'm so, what to say, it's not touched, it's not honored, it's delighted, I guess, that, this topic is kryptonite, right? It's a topic that gets you in a whole lot of trouble. And, I've been talking at a bunch of events, and boy, there can be some negative energy in the room, let's put it that way. And so, the folks who are talking about AI, I think, have a little bit of bravery about them to take on this controversial topic, and controversial for many, many, many good reasons. So with Fauzia, I've been watching her continuing to explore AI and share her learning. And she has a new newsletter on AI, is starting a new training course, and next week, on May 1st, we'll be celebrating her 30th year working in this industry as a publicist. And so, congratulations to Fauzia. A big welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Tad, for that wonderful introduction. And sorry, this is going to be.
You can just hold it.
Okay,
Just
we'll
hold
see.
it.
I talk with my hand, so we'll see how that goes. So if I hit it, please don't mind. Anyway, as Tad said, I am Fauzia Burke. I am the publicist here, not a programmer, not a tech startup. And I started my company when I was 27, when the web was baby new. And I started telling people I wanted to do online publicity, which no one knew at the time. I had no idea what it was. And so over the time, I had to learn it and then train it and, train people on jobs no one had ever had before. So in some ways, I feel like the AI revolution feels very similar to me than that. So I think I'm more native to it and feel more comfortable with it. And I'm just so happy. But I want to make a confession before we get started. I am absolutely a glass half full girl. Like, just know that beforehand, because I'm going to be excited and you're going to be like, she's over the top excited. So make that confession right off the bat so you know what's coming at you. Okay, so I do recognize that the concerns for AI are legitimate, right? We have copyright issues that we're all very upset about, job losses, authenticity, security. There's a lot of things that AI is problematic, for sure. But I really, truly believe that publishing is going to thrive in it. I really do think so. And it has through every other tech revolution, right? Remember when social media was like, oh my God, it's going to doom books, ebooks, they're going to doom books. Nothing has doomed books. We're still here, we're still thriving. So AI is definitely not my, the thing that's going to doom us. Don't worry about that part. Again, optimistic. So, all right, this I want to say, Pat and I were talking and he gave me this line, which I'm using, the original sin of AI, which is theft, right? It's hard for us in publishing to get over that because they stole our creativity, they stole our words without compensation, without credit, and that is something that it's really hard for us to get over. And I feel a lot of people in publishing so emotional about it, right? Because like these are our words, how can you just take them? Like it makes no sense to me. But unfortunately, thankfully there are lawsuits going on and maybe we'll win them. But for us as a community, we have to accept that as the original sin and move forward. Because AI is not going away, it's already everywhere, even more than you know. And so I don't think that we can be holding ourselves back just because we're so upset about what has happened. So that's my take on the original sin, which that gave me. So I have to tell you this, I'm not a writer, right? I'm a publicist. So I was so, when I wrote this line, I was so excited. I was like, oh, look at that little cool thing I just did. You know? I was very pleased with myself. However, when I started practicing, all right, you guys try saying that. It is a tongue twister. So I'm going to try it. So I believe that from papyrus to paperback, from print to pixels, publishing always adapts. So thank you. I was very proud. Cheesy line that I wrote and was able to deliver. So, but I honestly think AI is just our next chapter, right? There's no reason for us to think that it's doom and gloom. And I think, as Pat said, there's a lot of negativity towards this topic. I honestly don't think we need to have that. So just to kind of go over, and Pat did talk about this a little bit, and I did too. When I started my company 30 years ago, May 1st, I had to literally convince publishers that internet publicity was a thing. So the first campaign I ever did, I did for free because nobody really knew what I was doing. I didn't either. So I was like, I think I could do this. Yeah, let's try it. And I had to hire people and train them and all of those kinds of things. And then every single technological advance since then has been just adapted into our service, and I have never had negative thought about any of them, right? Like all those times where people were afraid of the technology, it's always been helpful for books, right? I remember when people were afraid of social media, and now it's the place where everybody promotes their books. We have Book Talk and Instagram people who are talking about books. So I think it's important for us to kind of keep things in context of like where we've come from. And so so AI is still just the next chapter, and I've definitely incorporated it into my campaigns, which makes my clients very happy. But I'm also feel a little bit of an obligation to share my knowledge, because as I'm learning, I want to bring our community and our industry forward. So that's kind of what I'm doing now with with AI and the knowledge and all of that. So here are my 3 concerns about AI and again, they're not the only ones. There's privacy and all sorts of things, but I think what happens to the planet is something that really concerns all of us, and I think that that's something that we need to discuss and talk about. Also, originality. I think a lot of people are worried that AI is just going to regurgitate all this stuff that none of us need, and what happens to all of the original thoughts and original art, all of that. I think it's going to get better. I really think. I think we're going to have a renaissance, and humans are going to be able to do amazing, amazing original work, and in fact, I can't wait for us to do that. And then, of course, the biggest concern, I think, with a lot of people is what happens to our jobs, right? Because we get these studies of like, oh, by 2030, there'll be this and there'll be that. And I do understand that. So for the planet, I think that, streaming and flying are actually much, much worse than AI. And how many of you streamed a show lately? Exactly. So holding back on AI because it's bad for the environment is really just holding us back. I think we need to talk about it, we need to bring it up, they need to figure out a way to cool these giant data centers in ways that we can accept. But just know that there are worse things out there for the environment, so don't let that stop you, because that is really important. And I talked about the originality, and then in terms of the jobs, I think that AI is going to change all our jobs. Everyone here, if we meet next year, our jobs will be different. Our job descriptions will be different. But it doesn't erase them. So let me ask you guys something. How many of you have a really fun, creative project that you really want to get to, but it's on the back burner because your daily stuff keeps coming at you and you don't get a chance to actually do that work? How many of you have a back? Okay, imagine if your job was about that. Like, imagine if your job is about the creative project that you never got a chance to do. Like, it's gonna change our job, but by God, bring it on. How many of you are thrilled to be on email 8 hours a day? No one. No one has ever said, oh, you know, I'd rather not use AI because I love being on email for 8 hours on my computer. You know, we were trained not for humans, but really to be machines, right? We were trained from college and work to produce results, not to create results, produce results. So AI, if it can basically take the job of making us what makes us machines, I mean, think about it. It's going to be amazing. And I just don't understand why every future is dystopian. Why did that happen? Why can't we think that AI is going to be incredible for humanity? Maybe it'll finally give us some peace. Maybe it'll finally create equality. Maybe it'll solve world hunger, cure cancer. I think we have to think about all the things that are possible with it. And again, glass half full, I do accept that, I did warn you. But I think there's a lot, I'm really excited to see what the future brings. So the 3 key ideas that I really want you to take away from today is, I think the really great magic of originality is collaboration between AI and human. The AI-human creativity is, no one has seen what we can do. It's incredible. So I think what we see as a collaborative project is going to be really, really fantastic. Also, in my opinion, AI expands creativity. You know, I can't paint or draw, but I would like to. And it's not something I'm just going to finish, know how to do. And AI allows me to explore creativity in ways that I have not been able to do ever in my life. So I think in some ways, it's actually expanding all of our talents. You know, what latent talent do you have that you weren't able to express before? This is a chance for you to express that, because there are tools that can bring your ideas, things that live in your head, into the world. I mean, I think that's incredible, and of course that's going to expand creativity. But here's, I think, one of the concerns I have is that as an industry, we're neither spending time learning, nor are we spending time training. We are really just sort of, everyone is trying to figure things out on their own, and I think we need some kind of way in our industry to figure out how to learn this, because it is not like software, right? In software, each of us can do one action, like let's say press F9, and all of us would get the same result, right? But in AI, that's not what happens. So each one of us has a very unique relationship to AI. And it's not something where one of us can stand up and say, oh, I got you. Here, do this, and you'll get the same thing as I do. That's really not the case. Everything has to be adapted. So the best way, in my opinion, to learn AI is to stay curious. And I think you said that earlier, Matt. Because you really do need to discover what it can do, because AI is moving on an hourly basis. You know, it's moving so fast that you can't just be like, oh, I went to a class, I learned it, I'm all good now. That's not how it is. It really is something that you need to stay curious about. And then in my experience, I think that learning, being open to learning all the time, experimenting, because as I said, this is a one-on-one relationship, so you're only going to learn this if you pay attention to it, and if you are discovering your own relationship with it. ChatGPT and I have gotten very close. I'm just gonna, it might be my BFF, I'm not sure. I think my friends have a hard time competing with Chat. Anyway, and then adapt as you are learning. So don't get stuck in what you did even a week ago. You know, adapt, learn, and that's sort of what I'm trying to do. I started a Substack just 2 months ago, really just explaining how I'm coming to things and as I'm learning them. So I don't know anything, I'm no expert, I'm definitely no guru, but it just helps me to talk through what I'm thinking. You know, this idea about software and AI being different, or how, you know, human beings are trained to be producers rather than creators in our education system and in our work system. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about in my Substack now. So AI really does, I think, gives you this creative expression. So I want to tell you something. All my life, I've had really vivid dreams. Like, I have pictures and landscapes, I have, you know, dolphins in Africa. It's insane, it's so fun. And I wake up in the morning and I journal them, right? And one time I remember I was telling a friend of mine about this dream, and she said, oh, that sounds so good. She's an artist. And she's like, I want to paint that. I was like, damn, man, I want to paint that. So she did, she painted it. It wasn't exactly the, you know, I mean, she's the artist, so she took my idea and kind of made something of her own. But one day I was in a graphics program, and you know, an AI generating program for graphics, and I described one of my dreams. And it came back with 4 versions of it, and it was mind-blowing. I wanted to blow it up and hang it in my wall, because it not only took something that's been in my head, my own private imagination, and it made it real. You know, it made it a visual representation of my creativity. Never had that before. So I think the people in this room, because I know there's a lot of designers in this room, I think that what you need to think about is that your ability to create something that's only in your head is not going to change. There's nothing. AI is always going to just be chasing after us. You know, our brains can create things out of thin air. AI doesn't create things out of thin air. It's actually copying things, right? So it's always behind us. So in that way, I think our creativity is protected. There's no way AI can generate what we can generate. So that was really one of my aha moments. And I think about all of you here, what are the latent projects or talents that you have, but you haven't been able to express them because either you don't know how to play the piano, or you don't know how to write really well, or, you know, other things that you really wanted to do, but it doesn't quite come together for you. Imagine if all that is open and all of us in this room start creating what's already in our heads. I mean, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's a renaissance of creativity. Don't know what the problem is. And then this is something that may sound crazy to all of you, but I think AI is like driving a car. So I'm from San Diego. How many of you have driven a car in Southern California, around the LA area? How crazy is that? Oh my God, I think it's nuts. There are more cars and more highways than most states. So when I moved from New Jersey 10 years ago, and when I started driving on those highways, holy cow. I mean, I was literally so scared of trying to figure out how to get anywhere and not miss my exit. And then it's so many, you know, you have to pay attention. Even the GPS didn't really help me. So I used to be really afraid of that. And then last year, my mom got sick, and she was in Orange County and I was in San Diego, and, you know, wild horses couldn't keep me away from my mom. So I was like, okay, gotta do this, just gotta do it. And I was doing it all the time because I was going up and down and seeing her multiple times a week. So it changed actually how I thought. So for a while it was just like, okay, I can go visit my mom. That was very like utilitarian, right? I drove, saw my mom, came back safely, nobody got hurt, hooray. I was very thrilled with myself. But once I got comfortable, and I think you all probably got that at 16 when you started driving, didn't happen for me till now, but when I discovered that I can go anywhere, oh my God, that's like been, I mean, next week I'm driving to Sedona. Wow, I can just go anywhere. And I think that when I think about that experience, I honestly think it mimics my experience with AI. You know, you start off, you're hesitant, it seems overwhelming, there's so much going on. Then you kind of get your handle on it, and you're like, okay, I have a favorite tool, I know how to do one thing, I can do two things, maybe I'll experiment a little bit, maybe make a video, maybe make a movie, I don't know, maybe. And then you think about, wow, where can I go next, right? It just opens up your horizons in terms of what is next for me? What can I do? What can I create? Because I've got this amazing tool that will take all of the crap admin stuff that none of us want to do, right? Let the machine do the machine work so you can be creative. So here's another example, a very tactical example of one of my early lessons in AI. I had one client, his name is Mike Lennox. He teaches digital transformation at Wharton, smart guy. Early on, this was early in the web journey, in the AI journey. And I had, as a publicist, I'd arranged for an interview for him, and it was a pretty big interview, so I was very excited about it, and the editor sent us about, I think, 8 questions. They were really good questions. So I called Mike and I was like, Mike, but the deadline is tomorrow. You've got to get to it. And he was like, Fauzia, I'm at a conference. I'm in back-to-back meetings. There's just no way I can do this tomorrow. Now, if there's any marketing or publicity people in the room, you know, you're just dying at that moment, right? Because you're not going to give this opportunity up. But what do? How do I get this done? So I thought about it and I realized that he had already done several podcast interviews, and there was an introduction to the book. So I fed the transcript of the interviews and his introduction to ChatGPT, because as I said, we're friends. And I said basically, answer this interview, but use as many of Mike's actual words as possible. So don't make it up, actually use his words from those transcripts, right? We got a phenomenal interview back. It was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. I edited it a little bit, made some tweaks on it, and then I was afraid that my client is going to be like, I don't want any AI writing for me, what the hell, and all that. But thankfully, Mike, being a digital native, was much more open to it. And I sent it to him. 15 minutes back, he sent me a few corrections and said, wow, this was pretty amazing. You did this like through my transcripts? I said, I did. And he was like, yeah, that's great, send it. Because it really, all AI did at that moment, it didn't write for anybody, right? Because we are all writers, we like writing. Writing is not the issue. It repurposed. And I could have done that manually if I had the time. But man, do I want to do that manually? No, never. So I think that's kind of one of the things that was a real aha moment for me, is that we're so afraid that AI is going to take over words and start writing for everyone, that we're not thinking about all the ways AI can actually help us for repurpose, right? Things we've already written and turning them into blog posts or social media posts or anything like that. So Mike was thrilled because he didn't have to do it, and he was thrilled that it was accurate. And my feeling is that happy authors write even better books. And I don't know about you, but people in marketing, how many complaints have we heard from authors about how they hate marketing? Like, I hear it daily. Bailey, come on. There's no chance you have not heard how much people hate marketing. So I think that if you think about the things that authors can either do themselves, right? So this takes the burden off of them, or maybe part of the redesign of our jobs is that we can support our authors better, right? Because that's their biggest complaint a lot of times, is that they're not getting the support they need. So if we can help them with market research, for admin support, marketing, social media assistance, content planning, repurposing, all of these things are so easy to do with AI. We can do this for our clients now, right? We can do this for our authors, and it will change them. Because I know a lot of editors and a lot of agents who complain that, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're trying to get the authors to write the best book possible, but you also need them to promote it. So what takes priority? And authors are like stuck between those two things. They don't know one job at all. And so I think that there's going to be a really great way for all of us to start thinking about, look, we're nowhere without authors. right? Like our industry doesn't exist if there are not people out there who want to write. So what if we were really, our job was about supporting them and not writing emails all day long, right? Like imagine what happens to the industry. I think it becomes much better. Okay, so my concerns about AI, as I mentioned before, these are the 4 things that I care about the most. I think the copyright issues, not only for what has already happened, but what's coming. We need more protection for this renaissance of creativity that we're about to have. Deep fakes, oh my God, I hope we get some legal protections around that because that is frightening to me, right? That really scares me. I'm really concerned about the lack of training and education in our industry, or any industry at this point, but our industry, and then the environmental impact. Those are the things that I worry about, and I hope that this is something we need to talk about. These are concerns we need to always voice. There's no reason for us to not be concerned. We can do both things. But I think that's really, those are the things that are really makes me nervous. Can you all hear me? Because I didn't even realize. Anyway, it's too late now. But anyway, my last thought for all of you is that I think the future of publishing isn't AI versus human beings, which is what everybody is trying to tell us, and it's not true. I think it is AI plus creativity, human creativity. And I think we are going to make incredible magic together. And I'm really, really excited to see what all of you are going to create, not produce. I think that will be really fantastic. So thank you. With that, I'm just gonna, this is how you can reach me. That QR code, which is also in the handout here, will take you to a page where I'm experimenting what I'm doing with AI. I have no idea. I'm making things up. But you can follow along and come with me on the ride. And then my handout here is sort of how to write a good prompt. I don't think there is prompt engineering is a thing. I honestly don't think so. But you do need to know a few things about how to ask the right questions, what parameters to give AI. So I put that on a sheet if you wanted. And stay in touch, follow me on Substack so you can hear my crazy theories about how AI is like driving. Which nobody thinks. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. I don't know, do we have time for questions, Katryce?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the definition of originality? Because I think that's really interesting.
Philosophical questions. I'm a book publicist, dude. I think things that have not been created before. Something that is original to whether it's us or whether it's AI or whether it's the combination. I think that's what it is. But it's a philosophical question. Maybe we'll talk about it at dinner. Yes.
Thanks, Fauzia. So there's a whole sort of industry that's cropped up around AI, and lots of companies are approaching publishers saying, we've got your AI solution.
Yes.
I suspect that some of these are not exactly great actors. Can you give any advice on what kind of help it makes sense for publishers to seek out from third parties, and when there's red flashing lights that there's not really a lot of value there?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because it is really happening everywhere. I was talking to someone recently and they were like, tech bros are coming into our space. So I think that my feeling is that if you yourself learn to use it, you have much better radar of what feels like BS. So recently I had someone contact me to give them my feedback on a program that they're using or they're developing. And in all honesty, it felt like it was 2 years ago. So AI is moving so fast that the people who are developing something that was really cool 2 years ago, now ChatGPT can do it for $20 a month, and they were planning to ask for $200 a month. So sometimes you just have to know and learn yourself. But I do think you have to, I think it's good if people have book experience, because then they understand our industry. It's not like any other industry. We know we don't make money, so. It's not like other businesses that actually try to make money, so.
You mentioned the need to protect for copyright and also against deep fakes. So I'm wondering, who are the organizations that might be working on that? And secondly, you talked about our jobs changing. If you could maybe give a little, what do you see in that regard?
Yeah, so I think for the copyright, obviously Authors Guild, AAP, there's a lot of New York Times, there's a bunch of people who are in that lawsuit and they're trying different avenues. I think we'll have to wait and see on how that goes. Honestly, deepfake, I don't know. I haven't heard a lot about it. It's what concerns me the most. And I think we're gonna need like legal protections against it. So I hope that, I think what's gonna happen is either a celebrity or a politician, someone with deep pockets, is going to have some impact with deepfake and they're going to sue. And then that's going to, I think, probably go to the Supreme Court and we'll find something. That's just my hope on it. So, and then as far as the jobs are concerned, so, for most of us, so much of our job becomes admin stuff, like replying to things, if I don't cut and paste again for the rest of my life, I'll be thrilled. Sending out, calendar items and keeping up with our spreadsheet, keeping up with our database, all of those kinds of machine work. If we don't have those and we can actually work on creative projects, on things that drive our industry forward, that are more about relationships, the things that really we're all in for, right? The words, the relationships, the creating the really important things. I think those are the things that are going to be really important for us. So the only thing is that I think our leadership, whether it's a company or our industry, need to start thinking about that. You're not going to have every single person change their jobs on the fly. So I think we need dialogue for sure, more talk about AI, more discussions about AI. Hope that helps. But I've changed my job already, and I'm happier. I'm actually gardening for the first time in my life because AI took away some of my admin responsibilities, and I'm doing embroidery. Things that AI can never do, right? Things I can do with my hands, things that are human. So I find it liberating. So I hope other people do too. Yes?
How do you, there's such a range, and when we're working with authors of opinion, and a lot of the opinion is, I will not touch this ever, and I don't want YouTube either. I have been just not trying to convince people. If people are open to me using those tools in my work, I will, and if they're not, I don't.
That's right.
Is that, is that the best approach, or is there a way to try to talk to people and say, this is not like Voldemort here, like we can't use this and you can still be creative?
Well, I think we can't convince people because the side that's anti-AI have a moral cause, right? Like it's a moral cause for them that our material, our work, our books were stolen and we cannot get over it. So I don't think you could just convince someone to be like, oh, that really something you care about, could you not? So I don't think we can convince people. I say the people who are curious, are interested, we can try to guide them. As I said, there's no experts in AI right now. It's 2.5 years old. So if we can just bring people along and get them curious and maybe have them, read something and say, oh, I guess it's not so bad. But I don't think we can convince anybody, that, and I've given up on that, right? So if you're curious, I'm here. If you're not curious, I totally get what you're saying. So, yes.
On that topic, so I'm a publisher at Thinking Press. We recently really grappled with that particular question, and the way that we phrased it was, look, if you're an artist and you're using AI as a tool as part of creating your art, that's allowed. Or if you're an author and you're using AI to help check your grammar or with whatever, right? Like, as part of, but you're the owner of the content. And we've said, we won't use AI generated art, but we will allow artists to use AI as a tool to create their own
unlock
art.
their creativity.
Right? Yeah. And that's sort of the balance of that we're trying to strike. Yeah. And I also understand there may be authors who look at that and say, no, we're not working with you.
That's exactly right.
And that's going to have to be okay.
That's just going to be what it is. So I think you're approaching it in the right way, because really demonizing a tool that can unlock creativity is ridiculous. And then people are so afraid of oh my God, people are going to start writing books with AI. They probably would, but we don't have to read them. Nobody's convincing us that we need to read these books.
And we're not going to publish them.
And we're not going to publish them. So I don't think, yes, there'll be crap out there, but there's crap out there now. No one here, of course. But there is. So I think you just have to say, as long as you're using it as a tool. And the thing that I think about, the writers I know, I couldn't convince them not to write, right? They have this innate need to get up at 4 a.m. and write. RJ Palacio, who wrote Wonder, she's one of my closest friends, And she had actually 2 jobs at the time when she wrote Wonder. And she's in publishing, so she was an art director and publisher of the children's books for workmen, like not little jobs, big jobs. And she was working, they were living in Brooklyn, tiny apartment. She got up at 4 in the morning to write Wonder in the closet of her house because that was the only place she could be quiet, and then went and did her job. So you can't convince people to give that up, right? The writers we all know, they tell you, these stories have been living in my head forever and I just have to get them out. It's not something where they're like, it's okay, I don't really have to write. The writers have to write. So I'm not concerned about them changing how they write, but if they get, and I do too, if Grammarly helps you figure out where the comma is misplaced or whatever, fine with that. I would hire an editor and they would do the same thing. So I think that's a really smart, good approach. So you have my seal of approval. Whatever that means. Yes.
Where are some places you can go for training?
Not very far. Carla right there is actually doing courses on AI. So ask her. She might have paid you for that plug. And then Thad does some really good work. I don't think he's doing any courses or anything, but follow him because he writes really smart things. I just write about what I'm experimenting and how I'm thinking about it. And I am going to start a course myself. I don't know what it will look like. I've never done it before. But I feel, as I don't know if you can tell, a little passionate about this topic. So I do want to encourage people to learn that. But I don't think, and I think, Matt, you said you're doing something, you'll hear about it later.
Yeah.
About training and things. So there are people who are popping up. I think the important thing is to just have people who you trust. Because there are a lot of, as Johanna said, there's an attitude of the Wild West or, the gold rush or something like that. So just be careful about who you trust. Yes?
I'm curious because it seems like a lot of your argument is kind of framed for people who are more established in their careers, but what about early career individuals who a lot of their roles are more admin and project management based? So what happens to those opportunities? Do they dry up?
So again, I think it's a great question, and I think that one of the things that I'm concerned about with people who are early in their careers is that a lot of times we get to our expertise, right? So if AI generates a press release for me, I've seen them for 30 years, I know how to adapt them, and I know that's not what I want or that is what I want, right? So you come with an expertise to say that's BS. And I've said that to AI, like that's actually wrong. They're like, oh yeah, sorry. Okay, like what if someone didn't know that? So I think that, but see, so what happens is that the expertise is really great because the collaboration with an expert, you're absolutely right, is great because you can catch that. But if you're early in your career, you may not be able to catch that and you might rely on it and it might not be correct because you don't know. So I think that is a concern of mine is how do we bring a younger generation to have the expertise, if there's like a gap basically on knowledge gap. So I think all the young people in this room, my feeling is if I'm hiring someone, I want them to come in with, here's what I think where I can bring value. And this admin stuff that really is burning me out and it's bottlenecking my work, I think we can offload that to AI. Now again, that's something that training and procedures will help with, but I do think that this is a very unique opportunity where you can decide what direction can I take if this is off my plate? Like what can I create? How can I be of service and value to this company because of my unique take on something? Does that make sense? I'm kind of making things up, I don't know.
I'm just concerned that what if these jobs don't continue to exist?
Yeah, I know, and there's lots of studies that are saying that. My feeling is the jobs will absolutely change. They may not, I don't think people will just not need this work done. So for example, let's say you work in metadata. That's a very mechanical, kind of machine-like work. You may want to review it, but I don't know if you actually need to do all of it. So if AI can help you with that, you still need someone to approve it and still need someone to oversee it and all of those kinds of things. So I don't think they disappear because the work still needs to be approved. But if you can get the help and you can free yourself up to do embroidery, Crazy. But anyway, just think about that more, like be more creative in terms of what you could do if you didn't have to do the admin work, if the machine work was actually done by machines. Yes.
So I love this idea of original sin. I've heard it before.
Yeah.
It's helping me to think about how we got here.
Yeah.
My question is, for the example with the reporter, did you feel like you had to tell the
I did
reporter?
tell him.
You did?
Yeah.
And he was fine with it?
Well, I told him how. I said it's not that AI wrote these answers. It repurposed answers from these interviews. So I just want to give you a heads up on that so you know. And he was like, well, did the author approve it? And the author did approve it, and it was his voice and it's his name on it. So at least the journalist felt like the responsibility is really on the author then, because he's saying these are my words. So yeah,
And
but I did tell them.
Got it. I'm just curious, did the author take the bulk of the answers, or did he, it sounds like maybe it was a Q&A?
It was a Q&A. They were doing a story and then they wanted some thoughts on some of the topics. It was a Q&A, and he had done podcasts which were Q&As. So some of those answers were already as intact as we needed them to be. And again, you and I have both done repurposing of that kind of stuff, you know, in the olden days. So the fact that we can now do it in like a minute, pretty cool.
Just for the record, original sin of AI, that's from the New York Times. I did not make that up. And so for those of you who think like, he stole it. No, I always credit the New York Times. I was mentioning to Fauzia.
And you told me, so I'm like, I'm just giving you credit. You can give whoever you want.
But it certainly resonates, right, when we think about all of the copyright issues, original sin.
I actually changed my presentation after we talked about that, because I was trying to figure out how to position that.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, it's a moral thing. People are really upset about it. I get it. So, anyone else? Yes.
I just wanted to offer an example of how jobs have changed in the illustration field. I have worked with a medical illustrator who's a certified medical illustrator and is does a lot of work for pharma. And over the last 2 years has gotten a new job mapping every cell in the human body, but not by drawing, but by prompting a computer and then evaluating the results.
Right. And he knows enough to evaluate it correctly, which is what I was talking about, having that expertise.
So is he essentially teaching AI then?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the downside, because then the next time they won't use him, they'll just use AI, right?
Well, I mean, that is the fear, right? That the jobs will disappear, and, you know, illustrators especially, they're thinking, oh my God, book, you know, if you can design a book cover by yourself, what do you need book designers for and all that? I know that's what people say, but I honestly believe that there is no way that AI by itself is going to replace what we can do.
Right. I just think the original sin is continuing.
Yes,
it's not,
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
you make it seem like it's one thing in the rear view, but it's not. So
No.
it feels like using AI, as I'm using it, it's taking everything I do.
Well,
so
exactly,
why
which was
would
one
I
of my
put
concerns.
myself in that position of having it take my creative work as I create my creative work?
Yeah, yeah. So you don't have to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
I think
I wish there would be more guardrails on that.
Do you know who's in our administration right now?
I know. That's why
there are no guardrails for anything.
That's why I wish, you know.
Yeah.
But the
I don't think we're
constant
gonna see those
surveillance and ongoing theft is an issue.
Yeah, it is definitely an issue. It was one of
Yeah.
my 4 main concerns is copyright going forward.
Right.
Not just we can accept the original sin reluctantly, but then what's happening going forward? You know, is there any protections for us? So
Right.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right on that. Yes. Yes, you.
So I was really intrigued by the example you gave about how you fed the transcript in order to get a catered result.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great, but I'm curious, once you uploaded it in, doesn't that now belong to ChatGPT and they'll use his words for other people who make the same request?
Yeah, same issue, copyright issue.
Yeah.
We don't have protections. I mean, I have, you know, I have a paid version, so that gives you a little bit of protection. I have in the settings turned off, don't use my content for training. You can do that. Do you think I trust that they will adhere to that? Not really.
Are there currently people who who are working towards changing that with?
I mean, there are lawsuits right now, right? There's lawsuits going on, and I think maybe something will come of this, but it's gonna take years for us to figure that out. And so our choice is to either, again, because it feels morally wrong, right? To participate or sit it out till something gets resolved. And I just don't think that the next 3 years we're going to see the kind of protections for consumers that we're hoping for. So it's up to us to decide. Yes?
I just want to offer the comment to you. There's a recent interview with Sam Altman, and he talks about governance. I know everyone has their opinion about Sam Altman, but he did talk about this kind of international governance that no one's figured out yet, but that is what needs to exist to protect.
What outlet is that?
It was a TED Talk, yeah, with Chris Anderson interviewing him.
But he does, I mean, Sam Altman talks a lot about it. So they're trying to make ChatGPT, profitable company rather than the non-profit, which is what they are right now. So I'm a little concerned about that too, because do we need any more business decisions in this? No. So we'll see how that goes. Anyone else? Yes.
It sounds like a lot of the suggestion you're putting forth is making sure that the expertise of folks in the publishing industry is putting a check kind of on the creation.
Yeah.
And this is kind of related to a question that came from that side of the room earlier, especially for younger folks getting into publishing, especially for jobs that are earlier in the publishing. How do you have any suggestions for making sure that that expertise is able to grow, that people are able to get the training they need in this rapidly?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely, I mean, I don't know, but that is an absolute issue that we need to grapple with and we need to talk about and figure out how we can do it. And I'll just tell you that when digital marketing and online publicity started becoming a thing, they were definitely, I know, marketing managers were like, I would never do that, right? There's some moral reason to not do this for some reason. Unfortunately, they're the ones who lost their job. The young people who were already native actually thrived. So I don't know how this side will play out, but sitting it out is not the option. I think for anyone, young or old, or not old, younger, early in the career and later in the career. Someone said, oh, that's it, we're done? Okay, thank you so much, everyone.